What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the first part of my top films of 2023, where we will focus on 11 through 20. All right, guys. As you notice, I'm doing two parts of my top films of 2020. It was a really difficult year, to be fairly honest, and I don't mean difficult because it was difficult in other reasons. But as my list grew and grew and grew, I realized that my top films was going to be two parts, 1 through 20. And I could have probably done a third part, but I'm like, yeah, it's probably a little too much. But two parts seems just justified. It was a really good year for 2023. Better than I expected, with the writer's strike and everything that's happening. A lot of films I was expecting were pushed into 2024, which is perfectly all right because there's too many films as it is. But I wanted to do a first part and then a second part because I thought it would be fun. The first part premiered on the 30th, the second part premiered on the 31st, and then, of course, most anticipated on the 1st, and then, of course, I had most disappointed yesterday. But with that said, a lot of these films that may be in 11 through 20 may be in your top 10. This is just my list of how I feel. And like I said, with my most disappointed, it's just, it's a list of Movie Emporium's films. It's not, whatever it is. So with that said, there's no honorable mentions, but there are 10 films in the part one. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about number 20 on my list of top films of 2023. Sadly, animated films were not in great supply this year when it came to great films. When I did my list of films that I felt that were great animation wise, there just wasn't very many, so I just didn't do it. So with that said, number 20 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. This was a complete shock because no one thought this movie was going to be good. Don't lie, you didn't think this movie was going to be very good at all. It was bringing in, of course, Seth Rogen. It was bringing in all these cast of characters that were not well known in the Ninja Turtles universe outside of fans of Ninja Turtles, and this ended up being like a huge surprise. It was a fun film. It was an entertaining film. It was a well thought out film. It was a film by fans for people that may or may not know the Turtles very well, and I think it does it in splendid spaces and aces because it also is a very pretty looking film. It's a film that feels like watercolors and chalk. It adds in turtles that are actually like teenage turtles, and it does a really nice job with like Superfly and Bebop and Rocksteady, and how it kind of twists and turns like the bad guy character motives and stuff like that. And I really felt this film was a very well put together film. Like I said, it's number 20. I had to put something at 20, and this is the film that almost didn't make the list. So at number 20 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, and at number 19 we have Oh, Ben Affleck, you rapscallion, you. Sometimes you put out great films, sometimes you don't. You put out a really good film this year with Air, which is the creation of the Nike Jordan name brand that became ever popular as it is. This is filled with great character actors, great actors in general, which include Matt Damon, Ben Affleck himself, Chris Tucker, of course, was fantastic, Viola Davis. It's a film with great performances and a very interesting story that you probably may or may not know. And I think for a film that could have been very by the book, actually Blackberry was going to be almost in my top 20 list as well. It was a film that kind of took that material of like famous name brand products and turned it on its head and stuff like that. But I thought Air was a very well put together, slick film from Amazon as well as Ben Affleck, and I think it definitely deserves the combinations that it's getting. And unfortunately, it won't be any like Oscar nominations or anything, but I think it's a film that if you haven't seen, you should definitely check out. So at number 19 is Air, and at number 18 we have So number 18 is a holdover from 2022. I had not seen this film yet, but it is Women Talking. I think this is some of the greatest performances of the year that just got it unfortunately got overlooked by the amount of performances it was given. It's a Sarah Polley film that is got an Oscar nomination and she won. It's a film with a lot of interesting messages, very hard-hitting messages, and is a very well put together, one of the great films of the year list type of movie. And once again, you could fill top 5 actresses' performances without people in this film. But it's not very high on my list just because there were so many great films this year. But it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. It is very difficult for the subject matter, and I definitely highly recommend it. So at number 18 is Women Talking, and number 17 we have So I unfortunately, this is a film I don't even think has a distributor yet. I don't know if it's been in the festival markets. I don't know. It was a film review copy I was sent that they wanted me to check out. I said sure. I love movies that have similar tones to like Once and stuff like that. But unfortunately, there's not much on this film right now, and I hope, like I said, it gets a distributor, because last December was a film that hit me pretty hard on the nature of like how down to earth it feels, how great the performances are, and it's a film that really kind of sets a tone that really is something I truly like, which is about the underdog who finds something in his life that is much more than the sum of its parts, to be fairly honest. And I thought this film had great performances by the main actor and was well directed. I think it was directed and starred the same actor. I mean, I can't remember offhand, but I highly recommend Last December if it ever comes to VOD. If you ever find it, definitely check it out, because it really is a underrated film, once again, that a lot of people didn't see and probably won't be on anybody's list but mine, because I'm probably the only one of 3 people that saw this film. But once again, Last December, if you can find it, or if somebody has a copy of it, or if it finds its way on VOD, definitely check it out. It needs some word of mouth. Highly recommend it. So Last December is number 17 on my list. Number 16 is... So The Color Purple was a film that I didn't know what to expect, because the original movie was a really difficult movie. It's up there with like Angela's Ashes as one of the most difficult movies I've ever seen. So when they were bringing it in to do an adaptation of the musical, and it was being directed by somebody who I didn't know much about, it was bringing in some new actresses and actors. I had hope, but once again, it's produced by Oprah Winfrey, Spielberg, and of course Quincy Jones, who worked on the original film. So here we are, Alice Walker's film, now adapted to a musical movie from the musical stage play, and it was wonderful. It was really wonderful in the simple fact that the performances really outweighed the story, which wasn't it was a very standard by the book musical story. But like I said in my review, sometimes that's all it needs is a cast that can elevate the property, and they all did it. Whether it be Fantasia or Danielle Brooks or any of the cast of characters in this movie, Taraji P. Henson. It really worked on that realm. It just, unfortunately, the main story, because it's so like road at this point, it's so similar, it just didn't make it in my top 10. So overall, highly recommended. Definitely watch it. It is opening Christmas Day, or it has opened Christmas Day, and so there you go. That's number 16 on my list of The Color Purple, and number 15 is... So number 15 is a film that, once again, is a very under the radar film that it was going to be my top 10, but I kind of shifted stuff around. That is, of course, Ray Romano's Somewhere in Queens. This was a film that has really great performances, really great story, very sad story, very typical of Ray Romano and his kind of, Everybody Loves Raymond story. But it's a movie about, families. It's a movie about kids and dealing with like hard subject matter. I think it's really interesting that, Ray Romano hires the girl to basically stay with the kid. And it goes places that are very sad, I think. And Laurie Metcalf is the mother, and she does a fantastic Oscar-worthy performance. And it's a movie that is, once again, no Oscar love, but it's going to be a film that I'm going to remember, because it really does work on the sense of Ray Romano just kind of keeping it down to earth, keeping it real, and it felt like a really well put together film. So at number 15, of course, is going to be Somewhere in Queens, which leads us to number 14, which is... Okay, so imagine, if you will, that somebody like myself would put a Godzilla movie in their top 20, and that's where Godzilla Minus One lays. It's not a top 10 film because, it just wasn't something that hit me like a lot of people it did, but this is a well put together, slick action film with a very low budget special effects budget that somehow made it look better than any Marvel movie I saw this year or DC movie. This movie is a crowd pleaser. It's the reason it stayed around longer than it was supposed to, because it's a movie that just it takes the characters and the actors and actresses and actually puts them front and center of what they should be in a movie like this, especially a movie about nuclear holocaust and about a giant lizard. You have characters unlike Transformers where you just want to see robots beat each other, but here it's like they actually took real engaging characters, including the main actress and main actor, and really put some heart into them and gave you a lot to think about, but also added this gigantic monster into the mix. So overall, Godzilla Minus One is a fantastic film and definitely is worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So highly recommended. Isn't number 10 on my list or anything like that, but it is definitely a film that you should check out. So number 14, of course, is Godzilla Minus One, and number 13 we have So take it if you will that this has been an awesome year, at least to me it has been, where I put one of my favorite films of the year, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, at number 13, to be fairly honest, part one. And it's not to say this movie isn't bad, it's just to say that it was a really difficult year when it comes to films. This is a fantastic next film in the franchise. It's unfortunate it's a part one and we have no idea when we're getting part two. I think 2025, but with the writer strike, it's been pushed back, and it has some of the great action sequences of the year. I don't think they hit as hard as the film on the next on my list, but I think what Tom Cruise is doing, what he set out to do. I think the movie's only main problem is that it's something that started to irk on me is the simple fact that I think the AI technology is a little rote at this point. It's about the only thing that seems like the Mission Impossible can do at this point because they've done everything else, like Fast and the Furious. But unlike Fast and the Furious, this film franchise keeps going up and up and up, and they do some really cool stuff in this movie, including the mountain jump and stuff like that. So overall, I think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is fantastic and highly recommended. So there you go. It's number 13, and number 12 is... So, like I said, at number 13, number 12, I think had better action sequences, and it has one of my favorite action sequences in recent memory with the above the set sequence, similar like Hotline Miami, where you're constantly following John Wick around. And John Wick Chapter 4 was kind of an incredible journey for a 2-hour and 45-minute movie, and I think it's a little long. I think it has some issues when it comes to its pacing, but I think it does action better than any franchise in the entire world, and it's violent, it's hyper-realized, and gives Keanu Reeves if this is the last film, gets him a great send-off and payoff that he's going up against Bill Skarsgård. He still has, of course, Lawrence Fishburne in this movie. We of course have Ian McShane. It was crazy that I saw this movie, I had reviewed this movie, and the next day Lance Reddick had passed away, so that was really kind of strange, but he's fantastic in this movie. Donnie Yen's fantastic in this movie, and it's a movie full of great action set pieces, so it continues the high trajectory that the John Wick franchise has been on since the first film, and I highly recommend it. So at number 12 is John Wick Chapter 4, and for the last film of part 1 of my 2023 top list, we have... So this film almost made it in my top 10, but then the end of 2023 happened, and that's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's a film that I highly recommend. Yes, the subject matter deals with puberty and deals with coming of age of young girls and stuff like that, but the reason this film is so good is on the performances. Abby Ryder, who is the main actress in this movie, is fantastic. She has to do a lot of heavy lifting as a young girl going through that stage of her life. I think it has a lot of great performances, whether it be, of course, Rachel McAdams, Benny Safdie, of course, Kathy Bates, who gives a fantastic performance. This is also from the director of The Edge of 17, which is one of those great films that came out that year, very underappreciated. And, Judy Blume is a very well-respected writer, and this is a film that really lives up to her material. Once again, I had never read the book, but I know this is a very popular book for a lot of coming of age stories, and it once again shows that if you take the material and you take it seriously, you add some fun moments in it, some great spin onto the story itself, and you add some great character actors, you can give a really great story. So unfortunately it didn't make top 10 because it's just the unfortunate nature of this year. It's been crazy, but definitely give it a watch. I bought it just recently. It was $10 on iTunes or something like that, but it's definitely worth watching. Definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. One of the best films I've seen this year. So there you go. That is number 11 on my list of top 20 films of 2023. Once again, this is a two-part thing. So this is the first part, the end of it. So I appreciate you watching. Comments below if you have a top 11 through 20. Let me know kind of where you would place those films. Have you seen most of these films? If you have, let me know what you think. And so with that said, tomorrow will of course be the top films of 2023. 1 through 10. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell, top the fun's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.